Hello YouTube, this is Morgan Airspeed Prime here with my next Avatar video. This time out I'm going to be reviewing, and opening up of course, both the Sokka and Zuko from the McFarlane Toys Avatar The Last Airbender toy line, specifically the 5-inch line. So I've reviewed everything else that's in the line, so the Appa, the Katara, the standard Aang, as well as the combo pack Aang with glider. The last two figures to do are the Sokka and the Zuko. So let's pretty much jump straight in. The back of the packaging is more or less the same as before. The descriptions are, once again, pretty fine, but you can tell they're maybe from like earlier, like they're either from years and years ago, or they're really written only based on the first like episode or two. So they're, if you're a hardcore fan, you'll probably maybe have some slight issues with the way the descriptions are written, but they're fine for the most part. But yeah, like I said, nice clean images of the characters on the back, and that's really all there is to say there. So we'll start with Sokka here. Again, I appreciate how easy they are to open. Nothing complicated here at all, so that's good. And just in general, I think with this 5-inch line, I like that there are a lot of characters in the waves that when we eventually, I suppose, get wave 2 announced, that yeah, we could be seeing straight away, you know, like Toph, Azula, Mai Tai Li, maybe one of those characters might miss out and we might get our book 3 Katara, we might get our book 3 Zuko, book 3 Aang, but that we've got 4 figures each wave, and everyone else is going quite slowly, doing 2 per wave. So you know, that is good. You know, it means we'll get to characters like Suki. Suki will finally get her action figure, I guess, sooner rather than later, and that's cool. That's really good to see. So we'll take Sokka out. So like before, only one accessory really, and that is with Sokka, it is the boomerang. But it feels like with Sokka it's kind of 2, because it does incorporate the boomerang like holder as well. Whereas I'd say the equivalent here is obviously that like Katara comes with this water piece, but she doesn't come with a water pouch, which would be sort of the equivalent to the boomerang holder here. So that feels just a little bit weird that Katara doesn't have that kind of, you know, key item, but Sokka gets this. Obviously, in this case, this is for, you know, the actual sort of feature here where the boomerang actually does, you know, go in. So that's kind of cool. Does it go in both ways, or is it only one? It's definitely meant to go in like this. So that's cool. You know, there is somewhere to store his weapon. That's cool, so you don't have to worry about like always losing accessories, because there's just an attach on point there as well. But let's take a look at Sokka. What I will say is I think this is probably the head sculpt that I probably have the most issue with. I don't think the 2 Sokka figures that we've got so far, the Diamond Select one and this one, I don't think either have really gotten the character spot on. I think the Diamond Select one is like laughable with how bad of a take on Sokka it is. This one's better, but I don't feel it's where it needs to be. It feels like they're basing their design on like very early or very specific shots, which I don't think is what most fans really picture in their heads when they think of Sokka. Just because, you know, every Aang has the big smiley expression and stuff like that. But Sokka, for some reason, they're keeping it rather neutral and serious, when Sokka's the funny guy in the group. It's just a little bit weird. I get it's meant to be book 1, it's meant to be early Avatar, but still, that's what the character is. So let's go through here. Like before, you know, you've got the usual sort of ball joint here, but mainly the motion is just swivel. There's a little bit of bobble up and down, side to side, but it's mostly just the swivel that you'd expect. Shoulders, like all the other figures, are exactly what you'd want. Perfect for what you need. Elbows go 90 degrees and have that swivel. Nothing at the wrist. Waist swivel, that's fine. And then, like we discussed with the I suppose the leg coming off here kind of makes the point for us. The legs are on a ball joint, and of course they're sort of molded in such a way where it leaves them quite, good for doing a lot of posing here. Is this loose or what's going on here? Feels... Yeah, so the leg here on mine is a little loose here, but you can see the sort of posing and the way that it works to get all the kind of motion that you'd want. And because Sokka's kind of skirt piece in a way, because it doesn't come down as much as Katara's, and it also is made of thinner material a little bit. I think in a way there's almost an extra layer, it almost feels, on the Katara one because of the texturing here that this Sokka doesn't have. So this doesn't feel as it doesn't feel like it's as restrictive to the articulation as it is on Katara. It'll be interesting to see how Zuko's armor is when we open him up in terms of affecting articulation. But yeah, hips are everything that you'd want. Knees do bend 90 degrees, though this feels quite stiff actually here. Yeah, that's surprisingly stiff. Yeah, they're really stiff. Obviously, yeah, mine has a bit of a loose left hip. But yeah, everyone else's knees are pretty okay, where it's just kind of normal. Especially Katara is just relatively okay. I guess because Sokka's one is this combination where his outfit sort of ends here, and then his lower leg is his boot. It's just done in such a way. The other thing is that you can see probably from the back here, the actual kind of joint is a lot thicker on Sokka at the knee than it is Aang. So I think that's another factor in it there. There's just a bit more friction here. But that's fine. You can still use it. But again, the weakness is nothing in the ankle whatsoever. And that does restrict motion. That's not great in terms of QC. That's kind of annoying. But just because it feels like some of the joints are tight enough to where you have to sort of manhandle it to get into position, and you're just ripping the leg off every time. So there's a bit of a pose. Sort of, yeah. So yeah, it's awkward. There goes the leg again. What is the problem here with this? Ball joint seems fine. This just seems to not... Yeah, not sure. Just loose hip, I guess, on my Sokka. Not great, but it is what it is. And yeah, that's most of what there is to say here. Like the details, they have all the detailing you'd want on him here. Not every single paint app is covered to be super accurate to the show and stuff like that. But for the price point, it's a pretty solid representation of Sokka, especially with the hair, the warrior wolf tail. It's pretty cool. And yeah, this fits actually quite nicely in his hands. The boomerang probably is where the lack of paint apps is the most apparent, in that I believe the kind of blade section of Sokka's boomerang, yeah, you can see it here on the promo image. The sort of blade section is more like an actual blade, and the colored blue part is only the sort of kind of inner bit of the metal for design. So that's that's a little kind of detail in that you'd be looking for when they do the 7-inch Sokka, that the boomerang should have the paint apps that it doesn't have here on the smaller figure. But again, feels like one of the only figures that actually has a little bit of a sort of built-in function there with the boomerang holder. So that's kind of nice. And yeah, it's my first Sokka figure, because of course I didn't like the look of the Diamond Select Sokka at all. So I am happy to have this in my collection. And so it means that we get our, you know, Team Avatar from early on in the show, of course. And they look quite good next to each other here. Sokka is actually slightly taller, which I do appreciate here. So it just means Aang is maybe a little bit taller than he maybe should be. But overall, the scale actually seems pretty good between them. And in general, they just look quite good. So that's good to see. And then we'll finish off with Zuko here. Okay, so we get dual fire daggers here, and the figure himself. So there he is. Very nice. Again, the thing you notice immediately is the texture here. And here's the first look at sort of texturing that they've done on the sort of like leather armor here. Feels very different than all the other stuff, in that you can see the difference even here between the fabric here, and then the leather sections on the armor. That's really nice. And that's one of the... Given that we've been getting a lot of sort of early Avatar stuff in all the action figure lines, it's been cool to see them do the accurate Fire Nation kind of military outfits here with all the layers and all the colors. So the sort of you know, all the different sort of reds and kind of really light purples, I suppose, that the armor is made up of is really nice. So again, let's go through the articulation here. So yeah, head pretty nice, like before. Arms go up, don't quite go up as high as the other ones do. They get, like, I think a little bit higher than that. Yeah, so like Sokka can go close to 45 degrees, like past the horizontal. Zuko can't quite do that because of the armor, but you get most of what you want out of it there. So there's some restriction due to the armor, but it doesn't seem that bad, honestly. Elbow and the twist is fine. How's the waist? Yeah, that's good. And now, the moment of truth here, the knee is fine. A lot easier to move than Sokka. Again, no ankle joint. But he does have his Fire Nation pointy boots. That's kind of cool. How is the hips? At least like it's molded in a way where like there is an opening. Like this bit moves separately than the edges, so that's kind of good. It leaves at least a gap for the kind of leg to go through here. So you know you can actually pose his legs in a sit-down pose without that just the whole front being restricted like on Sokka and Katara. So that's good. That goes. The outward motion, though, this is the thing of like on the Water Tribe characters, they have openings in the sides to do the posing. With Zuko, the openings are sort of on the front, so it means you're sort of more restricted when you go out to the side. Now it's flexible enough to where you can do it, but again, you're not really going to be able to do like a kick pose with Zuko because you're so restricted with basically this being locked into position, so it always closing that V of his legs. So you can't do a high kick pose unless you do like front kick type stuff. That's a bit unfortunate in that for an action figure, it's one of those situations where you have to accept a certain level of inaccuracy that because of the materials you're using, they probably should just have more cuts in these than they kind of have elsewhere. In the sense of like, I suppose with Katara, like you don't want to cut straight down the middle, the same with Sokka. So it is sort of tricky. I think for the front bit on the two Water Tribe characters, you probably just need this to be a lot thinner so that it feels a little bit more like actual fabric. with Zuko here, I think you could probably get away with just having like a cut here. Having it just be two separate pieces here, just so the articulation can work that little bit better. It's just a little bit restrictive, but I guess it means Zuko... No. Zuko's still going to have a little bit of a problem, because even if you put his legs forward, the fact that this quite thick rim of plastic comes down past where he's actually sitting means he's always going to look a little bit weird sitting down, just because this doesn't fold nicely. It's just one of those things with the way that they've done the figures, that it's a little bit kind of off. Again, I feel like I'm being super critical on these figures, but it's just acknowledging that for the price point, the expectation for them isn't super high, but they in general look good. Like, surface level detailing, general articulation is fine. The head sculpts, I think, are pretty nicely done, in that I think this is actually a really nice book one Zuko head sculpt here, in that, like, they've done the scar, I think, pretty well, the eyes, and I like that it's an angry expression, without being the big, like, mouth open like they're going to be doing on the larger scale Zuko figures from McFarlane, in that it fits the art here, that he doesn't have his mouth open, he just has a sort of snarl on his face, mouth closed. So there's that. Now, final bit is, I suppose, just the accessories. So they just have a sort of peg here, and he holds them in his hands. Obviously they're fire daggers, so he holds them reverse grip, I suppose, even though, can you really say it's grip when he's not technically holding them? He's firebending them. But, you know, in this case, the figure, physically, he does have to hold them. Okay, so this is a little tight on this hand. Let me just squeeze this in. There we go. And... so there he is, sort of holding them. Pretty nice. It's probably one of the better accessories. Like, I think Sokka and Zuko probably end up having the best accessories. You know, Aang with the glider is fine, but it also feels weird that the two Aangs, neither of them came with an effect part for air, and neither of them came with Momo either. I feel that somewhere along the way they should have included both of them in those products, but yeah, that's pretty nice. Obviously, Book 1 Zuko I don't think is anyone's favourite design for Zuko. I really just want to see more Book 3 Zuko's. I want to see more Book 3, like all the character designs. It does feel a little stale having to see every company, for the most part, go through all the early designs first, when it's the later designs that I think people are really passionate about. But yeah, pretty good. And like I said before, the big thing with me with these figures is just that you bring the group together and they do look good as a set. Just sitting there, you know, you make a little bit of a diorama, create a bit of a scene. They look, you know, good enough to do what they do. And again, just to get each of these characters, like $40 gets you most of the main cast from Book 1. Pretty nice. And then you pay your, what, $25, and you got your really big Appa here, and you've got the, you know, the gang hanging out by Appa, Aang sitting on Appa, and like Zuko's attacking. You know, it looks good. No other of the toy lines kind of have managed to really create this dynamic so sort of quickly by like having the Appa and so on. So there you go. There's my review for the Zuko and the Sokka. In the comments, let me know what your thoughts were, but that's been the video. Thanks for watching, and bye.